Is it on? Okay, awesome. Well, really nice crowd. Nice and mixed up. Super happy to be here. So my name is Katlego Maphai. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Yoco Technologies. We're in the point-of-sale payment space. We make it easy for small businesses to accept card payments. We now have over 6,000 merchants across the country. We've been live for about 2 years. We're starting to grow really quickly. And something that we're really proud of is of those 6,000 merchants, 70% plus had never accepted card payments before. So we're really sort of doing our role in helping to grow the market. So that's just kind of a sense of where we are right now. But I just thought maybe I'd start from the beginning and give you a sense of where the story really originates from. So we're 4 founders in the business, myself, Carl Wazen, Lungisa Machoba, and Bradley Watrous. And we actually met each other at different stages of our lives. So Lungi, who's our CTO, I knew him since we were kids here in Cape Town. And we reconnected randomly at the University of Cape Town in a registration line. Lungi, we both study business science. And Lungi went on to start a company immediately after university. He founded one of the world's first mobile voice over IP platforms. And what's quite fascinating about this story was that it was all the way back in 2006. And these were like the early days of Skype, right? So that's how advanced they were with this technology. And this was also pre-smartphones. So these guys were building this type of technology on old Sony Ericssons and the like. And what's great is that quite a bit of that team is in Yoko right now, and quite a bit of that team is doing our product development, which is great. And then the next business partner, Carl Wazen. So he's a Lebanese national, born in the UK, but spent the rest of his life in Lebanon, Beirut. Carl and I met at our consulting firm, or a consulting firm we used to work for, called Delta Partners. And Delta Partners was this tiny consultancy, focused purely on telecoms, media, and technology. 150 consultants, 30 different nationalities, and really just helping operators across Africa and the Middle East with their growth plans, strategy, operations improvement, and all this type of stuff. Carl and I met on a project in Johannesburg. We got paired up together to do a customer experience revamp for one of the operators here. And we're kind of like thrown in the corner. Like we got sent to like the call center to do this work, and we didn't know each other. And next thing you know, we started sort of putting together these building blocks for how you could look at a customer journey, and how you could start measuring these things that didn't seem measurable before, and how you could really start kind of looking at a business from the perspective of a customer and not the other way around. And this was quite interesting what happened at the end of this process. We didn't get a lot of credit for the work, and our bosses thought we were stuffing around. But we knew we were onto something quite powerful. And I guess 2 things happened. We sort of came up with this piece of IP that we're now applying in Yoko. And it also just kind of made us question, was this what we wanted to be doing, right? And it kind of kicked off this notion that we could get out and go do something different. And we did eventually. We ended up working together again in Saudi Arabia, and that was like 2011. And I just randomly got invited here for a vacation in Cape Town. And I wasn't expecting to come, and I came, had the most incredible time, and really just started connecting to people. And like just feeling a sense of connection to South Africa that I'd never felt before. I'm South African. I grew up between here and the US, and I moved around a lot, and we've been through a lot of change, but I just never felt that connection. But I think somehow this time away and just coming back and like just having this perspective, I just saw stuff, and I saw something in Cape Town. I just saw a city that was sort of poised to go somewhere, that was sort of redefining itself, bottom up, through small business, through endeavors that individuals were making. and the fact that you don't have a lot of large corporates here. So to really stay here, you're either working for a smaller business or you're starting one. So it's an incredibly entrepreneurial city, and that really captured me. So yeah, made the decision to move back home and also to get into entrepreneurship. Carl and I sort of made a pact to do that. But I wanted a soft landing into the country. I wasn't quite ready to go from consulting into entrepreneurship straight. And I started, putting out a couple of feelers, and the universe spoke back. And next thing you know, I find out that Rocket Internet, which is a German incubator for online startups, it's about €1 billion fund. They're listed right now. They incubated companies like Zando, Jumia in Nigeria. They were looking for ex-consultants to come work within their incubator. And I came, joined that team, and then it was weird. Like, I got to Cape Town, got all excited, and then literally on the same day I joined the team, they're like, you're going up to Nigeria to do a startup. And the sad thing is that as a consultant, I just spent quite a lot of time in Nigeria, and I was quite over it. I was like, wow, I've made it back home. I'm in Cape Town, like the dream, and I get told this. And I remember having a moment like, shit, what does this mean, right? Like, did I make the wrong call? What does it mean going back to Nigeria? Am I sort of deviating from my plans? But it was the best decision I ever made to go, because that's where I met the fourth founder of the company, Bradley Watrous. And we went up to Nigeria, and we had this crazy task of pulling up an e-commerce venture within a couple of weeks, typical Rocket style. And it seemed impossible, but somehow we did it. This thing became massive very quickly, and it still is Africa's largest e-tailer. And that experience in Nigeria was really incredible. Bradley and I really bonded. Lots of coffees, lots of conversations, lots of discussions around entrepreneurship. And it was the perfect boot camp for what was to come in the next couple of years in terms of trying to pull up a payments business. And yeah, in the end, once you pull up a venture in Nigeria and you do it so quickly and it scales and it just works, your concept of what's possible dramatically shifts, right? And I think that's the beauty of working on the continent in some of these sort of underdeveloping or emerging markets that just really shift your perspective on what's possible and what you can apply and how you can go about seeing things and spotting opportunities. So yeah, Bradley and I, sat our boss down one day outside of this coffee shop, the only coffee shop we could go to, and we're like, Hendrik, we're moving back to Cape Town to start a company. And he's like, what do you mean? And we're moving to Cape Town to start a company. I think we're done here. We packed up and we left, and we didn't quite know what we were going to be doing then. But I knew who I wanted to work with, right? Like all these people over the phases of my life, and Bradley had just stepped in the final component. Lungi had just exited a startup. Carl had just moved down from Lebanon, and we're just going to figure this thing out. And we looked at a whole bunch of different business models. We even wanted to start a wine bar. I remember we went out to Stellenbosch to meet some, family winemakers and have discussions and stuff, and we were quite serious about it. But in the end, the space, mobile point of sale, just kept on calling to us, right, from various areas. So we looked at a bunch of things, but eventually we settled down on this. This was 2012. End of 2012, we stopped everything and just went deep into this whole thing. And it was quite fascinating. Initially we thought we were solving technology or and then we dug a bit deeper, and we realized that we were solving, a cost problem. It was, quite prohibitive to get one of these machines. And then we went a bit deeper, and we realized that, there's actually a real barrier for a small business to get a card machine, and it's quite artificial too. So just to give you a sense of the numbers, in South Africa, sort of on average, 7.5 out of 10 adults have a card to use. And that's also at all levels of the economy. The government issues social grants on prepaid cards, right? So lots of cards. We have one of the highest card penetration levels in the world, even relative to developed markets. But then you look at the other side of the equation, so people being able to accept a card payment, at the time was about 250,000. Now it's set at about 300,000 businesses being able to accept card. It sounds like a large number, but if you take that as a function of 1 million registered or 4 million sole proprietors, it's actually a tiny number. And we started to realize that, we actually have a massive problem to solve here. And when we started digging deeper, we're like, why are these numbers so low? We essentially found out that you needed long trading history, up to 6 months with the bank, so that cut out startups from getting card machines. You needed to rent the device. You had these, fixed monthly costs. You had internet. Somebody had to come see you, so you had to be reachable. So that cut out people in the regions. So we quickly started realizing that we were solving an access problem, and we started building and thinking about the business in that sense. And license to contract directly with our merchants, right? Which was highly unusual. At the time, no. And a lot of our advisors told us we were crazy. There's no ways that was going to happen. But we're like, well, we won't start this business if it doesn't happen, right? There's no point. There's no point just delivering tech. We need to be able to control the onboarding experience and who gets onto the platform. And that took a year, right? So it took us a year to get this license. We left Cape Town, we moved to Johannesburg, and we lobbied a bank to do that. And that was insane. Just to put it into perspective, if at the end of the year the bank said no license, there would be no company. A year of our lives would have been completely wasted. But we had a very deep sense of conviction that we needed to be able to control the onboarding process. And yeah, we got it, got the license, got our first bit of funding, moved back down to Cape Town, started building out the product. And sort of roughly 10 months later, we were doing our first live transaction. And that was in October 2014. And yeah, we started off nice and slowly. And then the following year, we started picking up. And October 2015, with about 500 merchants and processing about 13 million rands on the platform, we felt that we were ready to reveal ourselves to the market. And what's quite fascinating is we were the last entrants to the market by a long shot. So Nedbank had launched in 2013 with the Pocket POS. Absa had launched the Absa Pebble later on that year. Yoco had launched earlier, ZipZap. A bunch of guys had sort of gotten into the market. And even with all of that, we still opted to do a year-long beta. And at the core of it was the simple understanding that, first of all, we're handling money. Number two, you're a small business. You're doing a couple of transactions a day. It's your livelihood. And all of a sudden, and for us, it wasn't actually. So we spent a lot of time going deep into our product, going deep into the experience, the merchant and the customer, building trust, really getting into our brand. And yeah, by the time we came out of our beta in October 2015, ourselves to the market. And that was a really great sort of zoom. A year and a bit later, we're sitting at about 6,000 merchants. We added 150 in November alone, and we're really starting to grow quite quickly. So maybe I start touching on, what are we trying to do here? Where are we trying to go? So some context on small business, very relevant context. On average, small businesses are driving about 50% of GDP across markets in Africa. Okay, that's a massive number. And here's the most important number. SMEs are driving about 90% of employment. Okay? But because all these businesses are small, fragmented, dispersed, relatively unknown, models from traditional older institutions haven't been able to reach these businesses, right? And that's why you typically don't see bottom-up, built from the ground services for smaller businesses. And that's why they're typically getting the least amount of tools, even though on aggregate, they are making a significant contribution to the payment. So we're doing something really interesting. We're getting out there and we're acquiring these smaller businesses, right? We have new age tools. We have digital, so we can reach. We're able to onboard very quickly, off the license that I was telling you guys about and the innovation we've done around that. We can sign up a merchant in 5 minutes. We can get a reader to their door on average in 2 days, something completely unheard of. And this is And now we've cut out the access component, and now all of a sudden we're starting to build this network of SMEs that never existed before, this network of entrepreneurs. And we have big targets for the next couple of years. We want to get to 100,000 SMEs across Africa within the next 5 years. I believe these targets are achievable. But what happens when you start having 100,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 businesses sitting on a platform that has visibility on who they are, what are they selling, who are they engaging with, their cycles, all this type of stuff? You have a really powerful distribution network that never existed before. It becomes our own distribution network to offer FinTech services to these guys to help them grow, to help them engage their customers. But it becomes a distribution network that never existed, that sort of had these bigger organizations reticent to offer services to these smaller businesses. So we can become a conduit into these smaller businesses that never existed before. And all of a sudden, they have access to tools, and these businesses can really start growing. So that's the bigger picture. We're building a Pan-African brand, syndicating SMEs and entrepreneurs like never before. And through this network, we wish to drive economies and to really move them forward, because we really believe that the future of commerce, the future of economies, is through small business. And it's in the numbers, right? You guys see that our economy is not growing at all. And I'm sorry to say it, it's not going to magically fix itself. There's structural issues in the economy. We have a large business, highly concentrated industry economy, and no magic is going to sort out what's going on right now. The magic is with small businesses, and we see it. The economy is sort of growing at like 0%, and we see our merchants, and they're completely going counter to the cycle. And you know why? It's quite simple. These businesses operate in communities. They have to be relevant to their communities. They have to adjust to the context. So incredible resilience, they can adjust. They can always bring in new things that are relevant and that can really help to drive growth. And if you're able to take all these individual stories and amalgamate them into something bigger, then you can start seeing an economy moving in the right direction again. And this is something that excites us. And maybe I finish with an anecdote. How am I doing on time? Okay, perfect. I finish with an anecdote that really illustrates the story. So on Bree Street, one of our early merchants, great restaurant, great cheese. So there was this barista at Culture Cheese Club, made the most amazing coffee. His name is Tobani. And really talented, used to do art and make the most amazing coffees, and just a great guy, right? He's in some of our early photos, and you can just see him really pop out in a cheese shop, right? And Tobani's from the townships, Nyanga. And, he came to me one day while I was sitting in Culture Cheese, and he's like, Katlego, I'm going to come to you one day and get one of your card readers, because I'm starting to do my own coffee thing. So I'm like, cool, man. I look forward to it, right? And I'm sitting in the office one day, and a member from our team, my colleague Rebecca, taps my shoulder, and she's like, hey, Katlego, there's somebody here who wants to see you. And I go, and there's Tobani, right? Picking up his card reader as he promised. I'm like, cool, right? And then, I start seeing Tobani at different events. He's got his own coffee thing going. And then, we wanted to run an experiment at the office of having a barista and seeing how that would work out. And we invited Tobani to come serve coffee in the office just as an experiment and a test. And he comes and, he's doing his thing and team loves it. And then I noticed something really interesting. I see Tobani's business sort of in a very gradual way, moving forward, right? So, he got his Yoko card machine, he's got his branding going, good setup, got his blender to make the iced coffee drinks, really amazing, right? And the guy's skilled, right? He's able to make amazing coffees. But then, next thing you know, I see Tobani employing somebody, right? So, sort of within 18 months of this guy telling me from his previous employer that he's going to come to me and get a card machine, he's doing his own thing, and he's employed somebody already. And guys, this is the stories, right? This is the real stuff. This is how we're going to get out of this rut that we're currently in. It's not going to fix itself. And yeah, in the end, we see ourselves being in a position where we can really enable and empower these businesses, right? We're there, we're collecting verified payment data. We've just done, last year we did an Africa first integration into Xero, a cloud accounting platform. We're doing something with Sage now. And really here the idea is we want to get to a point where, accounting becomes like plumbing in your business, because we're taking that payment data and we're doing something useful with it, right? We're updating your inventory, we're helping you engage with your customers, all these types of things. And all of a sudden, we could take these services that were only available and affordable for larger businesses, and we can distill them, package them, and offer them to smaller businesses so that they can focus on the right things. And what I mean by the right things, I mean sort of getting out of the crappy, time-wasting, zero value add administrative side of the business that takes a lot of time, right? And you've all been there, those of you who are entrepreneurs. And putting these business owners in a situation where they can just focus on the value add, right? The things that differentiate their businesses, the things that engage their customers. So we feel very privileged with what we're doing, where we're at, engaging with all these entrepreneurs, having them on the platform, having them active, and also just sort of giving them a voice, right, and visibility, and proving that they're real. I often find in South Africa that small businesses tend to get patronized, right? Like, that's cool, look at that nice thing that person's doing, whatever. But this is a really important part of the economy, and I think this is where we're going to figure out our future, right? Through these types of things and really making them work. So yeah, I think beyond that, just to kind of wrap up a little bit. So yeah, I've had a bit of an eclectic life. I was born in Johannesburg. I left when I was 4. I moved to Cape Town. My parents are from Pretoria. Those are my roots. I was here for a little while. Then we moved to the US, spent 2 years there on the East Coast, moved back to Cape Town, and we moved to California. And then I went to high school in Pretoria. And then went to university in Cape Town. So, on average, I've never really spent longer than 5 years anywhere. But yeah, what's happened is that I've always been in very diverse environments, right? Having to adjust, learn, being receptive, etc. I was also quite fortunate that my parents, super open-minded. They really imparted that on me, and not just through lip service, but at the dining room table, right? We always had all sorts of people sitting at the table. So diversity is something very, very close to my essence. I believe in it. And I believe that as a country, it's something we haven't tapped into yet, right? We see it as something we need to comply to at the moment, right? That's the vibe around diversity. It's this thing we have to do. But we haven't seen it as an advantage yet. And it is an advantage, right? You create advantage by doing a combination of things that can't be easily replicated. And that's what diversity gives you. And it's something I'm super proud of. First, within our founding team, 3 South Africans, 1 Lebanese, somebody who's English, Sotho, Xhosa, we've come together and we reflect the world in a sense, right? And extended this into our team, where you see high levels of diversity, and you just see the thinking around our customers, our merchants, about our environment, about our community, and it's so broad and it's constantly being challenged, and it's allowing us to build better, more relevant products and services. So yeah, I can't stress this enough. Don't see diversity as compliance. See it as something that can give you like raw advantage that can't be replicated. Cool.